Welcome to Black Horror Stories, where the shadows tell stories that are not for the faint-hearted. Tonight, we explore three terrifying tales that remind us that the unseen world can be far more dangerous than we think. From a ghostly little girl in the park, to a demonic funeral procession, and finally to the haunting encounters in a pension room, these stories will make you question what's real. Sit back, turn off the lights, and join us as we delve into the darkness. But beware, once you step into these stories, you might not be able to find your way back. Story 1, The Little Girl in the Park. A few years ago, there was a festival in the heart of the city. It was a major event, with artists from the US and Trinidad coming to perform. Local artists were also set to take the stage. My girlfriend and I were getting ready to head out to the festival. But first, we had to make a few stops along the way to grab some food. It was already late, so we found parking behind the president's office. A man approached us, one of those streets parking attendants, offering to keep an eye on our car for a small fee of $20. I paid half up front, and the rest would be due when we picked up the car. No problem, we thought. The parking spot was close to Independence Square, so we wouldn't have to walk too far when the festival ended. We decided to take a walk through the nearby park before heading to the square, as there were activities happening there too. My girlfriend noticed a young girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, sitting alone on a bench. She was petite with a delicate frame. There were no adults around, which seemed strange, so we approached her. My girlfriend asked, "What are you doing here alone? Where are your parents? Aren't you afraid to be by yourself in this crowd?" The girl seemed unimpressed and casually replied, "Oh, my mom just went to get some milk. I'm waiting for her." My girlfriend and I exchanged puzzled glances. We weren't sure what to do. Stay with her or mind our own business? The girl didn't seem scared, so we assumed she was used to waiting for her mother. There was no sign of panic or fear in her demeanor. "Let's go or we'll miss the activities. Her mom will be back soon," my girlfriend urged. I tried to get more information from the girl, asking for her name. "Shally," she said. "Nice name," I replied, trying to reassure her. "Remember, don't go anywhere with strangers. Just wait for your mom, okay?" She nodded and we walked away. As we entered the park, my girlfriend, a little tipsy from the beer and wine, questioned why a mother would leave such a young child alone in a crowded place. "Some people shouldn't be mothers," she grumbled. I glanced back at the spot where we had seen the girl, but she was gone. "Her mom must have picked her up," I said. We hadn't walked far, so it seemed odd that the girl had disappeared so quickly. My girlfriend suggested we loop back to check if the girl was still there, just to make sure everything was okay. We returned to the spot, but there was no sign of her. We approached a guardhouse nearby and asked if anyone had seen a little girl. The guards said they hadn't seen any child in that area. "We saw you talking there when you entered the park, but we thought you were talking to each other," one of the guards said. They seemed confident that there had been no girl sitting there. I started to sweat. I knew I wasn't drunk. I hadn't had anything to drink. My girlfriend got annoyed and said, "Forget it, let's get out of here." We headed back toward the president's office, but I kept looking around, hoping to see the girl. But she was nowhere to be found. Back at the festival, the crowd was thick, and we spent a long time pushing through the throng to get inside. It was getting dark, but the atmosphere was lively. I almost forgot about the incident with the girl. Eventually, the drinks and water ran out, so I went to the bar to replenish our stock. And that's when I saw her again, the little girl Shally, hiding by the bar. I approached her and asked what she was doing there. She said she was looking for her mother. I crouched down to talk to her, and everyone walked past us without even noticing her. "Wait here," I said. "I'll get some water for my friends, then we'll look for your mom." I headed back to my friends, planning to tell them I'd found the girl and would help her find her mother. But I knew my girlfriend wouldn't be interested in helping, so I kept it to myself. I returned to the girl, took her cold hand, and let her out. We walked past the president's office and toward my car, where I had some food. The parking attendant ran up to me, asking if I was leaving. I said, "No, I'm just grabbing some food from my car." I took some food from the back seat and gave it to the girl. She ate hungrily and asked for a drink. "I don't have any drinks here," I said. "Wait here and I'll buy some water nearby." I left the girl at the car, asking the parking attendant to keep an eye on her while I got the water. He looked at me strangely, but I didn't pay much attention. I hurried to get some water and returned to the car, but the girl was gone. I asked the parking attendant why he hadn't watched the girl. He looked at me with a puzzled expression and asked, "What girl? I didn't see any girl here." I insisted that I had brought a girl with me, but he kept saying, "You came alone, ma'am." I was confused and angry. How could you not see the girl? I was holding her hand. But he was adamant that there had been no girl with me. He then mentioned that the area had a strange history and advised me not to talk too much about things I might see. I explained what had happened, but he seemed uneasy. He warned me that whatever I had seen might not have been human, and that it was good I had fed it, or it might have followed me home. I was unsettled but tried to calm down. My colleague came looking for me at the parking lot, and I pretended everything was fine. I said I was just having a chat with the parking attendant. On the way back, my girlfriend wanted to stop at KFC. As we passed the bridge, I saw a group of people crossing, and among them was a little girl. She had a sinister grin on her face. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was cold and chilling. She greeted me as if she'd been waiting for me, and I knew then that this was no ordinary child. I prayed silently as I drove away. Luckily, nothing happened to me or my girlfriend, but the next day I had a high fever. It took a week to recover. I never saw the girl again, but her sinister smile haunted my dreams for a long time. Story 2, The Deadly Funeral, When Curiosity Turns Fatal. It was a public holiday in our beautiful country, and I was with some buddies from the neighborhood heading into the city to party. After celebrating, we were walking home as a group around 3 a.m. We were having a great time, laughing, cracking jokes, and generally having fun. As we walked down the street, we approached the corner nearby our home where there are 2 cemeteries. All of us suddenly stopped laughing and making noise. Why? Because in the distance we heard singing and what sounded like a crowd approaching. Funeral songs echoed through the quiet night. We checked our watches. It was exactly 3:40 a.m. We were startled by the loud singing and the clear noise of a crowd, but we couldn't see where it was coming from. We didn't know what to think, so we figured there must be a ritual or something happening somewhere nearby. We tried not to dwell on it and hurried on our way home. The singing continued, so we turned toward the sound. This time, we saw a massive funeral procession entering the cemetery. At first, we couldn't see anyone. Then suddenly, there was a huge procession. This was unusual because funeral processions don't happen at 3:40 in the morning. We knew something wasn't right. In a panic, we ran home as fast as we could. Once home, I knocked loudly on the front door. My grandmother woke up and opened the door for me. As soon as I got inside, she said, "Good that you made it home safely. I had a strange dream about you." I nervously told her about everything that had happened. "Take off your clothes and throw them on the trash heap where we burn garbage," she said. Then she fetched some holy water and dabbed it on my neck and face. Afterward, she had me enter the house backward. I slept soundly that night. The next day, one of my friends got sick. We were a group of 4 that night, so I went to gather the other 2 friends to visit our sick buddy. The others hadn't gotten sick. Maybe their parents or spiritual healers had helped them. I didn't ask. When we got to our sick friend's house, he told us, "After you guys went home, I went back on my scooter to see what was happening at the cemetery, just out of curiosity, but I stayed at a safe distance so they couldn't see me. I saw them dancing with a coffin. There was a huge crowd, and the procession kept singing and dancing for a long time." We listened to him, then chatted as if nothing had happened. The next day, we got the devastating news that he had died. Our friend was gone. I was devastated, so I told my grandmother about it, and she explained that it was no ordinary funeral procession, especially not at 3:40 a.m. It was a demonic funeral, a supernatural funeral procession. That's why my friend died. His curiosity got the better of him. He should have known better and stayed away, especially from something so strange. If he had just gone home, it would never have ended this way. Let this be a lesson to those who are overly curious. Not everything is meant for us to see. Stay in your home if you can, and don't meddle in things that don't concern you. Story 3. Ghostly encounter in a pension room. About 3 weeks ago, my boyfriend and I went to a pension to spend some quality time together. After having a playful evening, we lay in bed chatting and cuddling. Later, he fell asleep, but I just couldn't seem to fall asleep, even though I was tired from our playful activities. I kept tossing and turning in bed, trying to find a comfortable position, but I just couldn't fall asleep. Then suddenly I saw two dark figures enter the room. The room was dimly lit, so I couldn't tell where these people came from, but they were just standing there in our room. It was a man and a woman. Initially, I thought they might be cleaning staff because they casually strolled into the room, seemingly unaware that we were there. I figured they thought the room was empty and came to clean it for the next guests. But I quickly realized something was off because I hadn't heard the door open, and it was locked, so there was no way for cleaners to get in. Also, these people didn't turn on the lights, which struck me as odd. They moved closer to the bed where my boyfriend and I were lying. It was like they didn't even notice us, as if our presence didn't concern them at all. Despite my confusion, I still thought they were cleaners, though they didn't behave like it. Then I saw that they weren't wearing any clothes. They were completely naked. Suddenly, they started passionately kissing and having sex right in front of me. I was utterly confused, thinking they had stumbled into the wrong room by mistake, or were so lost in their passion that they didn't realize they were in the wrong place. Let me be clear, they didn't look like ghosts. They looked like regular people, not transparent or anything like that. I tried to turn to my boyfriend to wake him up, hoping he could make sense of this weird situation. But my body wouldn't cooperate. I couldn't move, as if I was paralyzed, and I couldn't scream either. It was the scariest feeling I've ever experienced. While the couple continued their intimate activities, I felt completely helpless. Then I remembered to pray and call upon God's name. Even though I couldn't speak, I started to repeat God's name in my head. After what felt like an eternity, I began to feel some sensation in my legs, and I kicked my boyfriend with all the strength I could muster to wake him up. He woke up looking sleepy and confused and asked me what was wrong. I turned to point out the couple, but they were gone, vanished without a trace. It was like they were never there. I immediately told my boyfriend that I kicked him by accident, as I didn't know how to explain what had just happened, fearing he might think I was imagining things. I quickly got up to take a shower. While I was in the shower, I still felt uneasy and nervous. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't shake the images of the couple from my mind. When I returned to the room, I saw my boyfriend sitting up in bed, looking at me with a strange expression. He said, "I think I saw something weird. Two people were standing right next to the bed." His words made my stomach churn and my pulse quicken. The couple had returned, but this time it seemed like my boyfriend saw them too. Before I could respond, we heard whispering. It sounded like voices, but we couldn't make out what they were saying. My boyfriend looked toward the corner of the room where the whispers were coming from, and his face turned pale as a sheet. He grabbed my hand and whispered, "They're here again, and they're watching us." Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, filling the room with an eerie resonance. The couple, who had vanished earlier, now reappeared. But this time, they were not merely spectators. They were pointing at us, and their gestures became more urgent and menacing. It was as if they were signaling for us to join them, to follow them into whatever realm they came from. Panic gripped me as the couple started to move toward us, their expressions devoid of any emotion. My boyfriend squeezed my hand, and we both felt a chilling coldness creeping over us. The couple's whispers grew louder, turning into a haunting chant that echoed through the room. We knew we had to leave, but our bodies felt heavy and sluggish, as if some unseen force was holding us down. The couple was closing in, and it felt like we were being pulled into their world. I tried to scream, but my voice was gone, replaced by the incessant chant that seemed to surround us. In a final burst of strength, my boyfriend grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the door. We stumbled out of the room, slamming the door behind us. The chanting stopped abruptly, but the feeling of dread lingered. We didn't look back as we ran down the hallway, desperate to escape the ghosts that wanted to take us with them. That night, we never returned to the pension. We knew we had narrowly escaped being dragged into a world where we didn't belong. From that moment on, we understood that some things are better left unseen and that curiosity can be a deadly temptation.